Okay.
No objection.
Yeah.
Emmy, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, Chris. Thank you. My camera is going to be off because it's raining where I am seated. I'm just seated in some room, so I will not be able to have my video on constant. So thank you so much. My name is Emmy Zumblamai Okelo. I am the executive director for Fitch. Fitch is based in Yumbe district, just very close to Lira. We're working with TCP Global to ensure that we support our rural communities because we stay in the community. And currently, we're also doing a malaria survey, which actually the community are very excited because they are treatment instantly. Thank you very much, and I am looking forward to having a lot of great conversation with us all here in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmy. Innocent, would you introduce yourself?
Oh, Innocence on mute there.
Based in northern Uganda. SEDUC is a physical agent of TCP Global in northern Uganda. So we have 34 sites of VSLA women groups. Out of these, 9 of these women groups are in Bidibidi refugee settlement, which is one of the largest refugee in the world. And then 25 sites are in the host communities. And one thing is we are very happy that 13 groups have already graduated, and we are preparing to organize a very big function to involve all the district leaders, MPs, and then LCs, and all the Rotarians and TCP teams to come for the function. And at the same time, we also have a project of malaria elimination in Achiba, one of the village here in Yumbe, in partnership with the P2P, headed by Chris Roesel. Thank you so much for being partners here in Yumbe.
And Chris, should we also hear from Christina and any other VSLA leaders who are there?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Christina, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone over there. I am Chris, the chairperson for a women savings group. That's Amangabo Women Savings Group. I'm the chairperson. And I am the director to Rotary Club, that is a public relations director. In Amangabo Women's Group, we do saving, and we also do some gardening. The rain season has started. We have started our kitchen garden behind our houses. And we also support our mothers who are breastfeeding by providing them with health education to support them, their breastfeeding for the babies, to rule out malnutrition for the young ones. And in a Rotary Club, as a director for public relations, I also do market their products. Is it okay? Market their products. Like now we are able to make our liquid soap and sell them. We are able to make bar soap and sell. And we have recently got some fund from Jennifer to support us with making soap. And so far, we're also going to have another fund from her for buying more molds so that we can make many soaps for sale on the market. This is all about the support from TCP Global and Chris Roesel and also Jennifer. Thank you so much. And including Helen as the mother of TCP. Thank you so much. Yes.
Great.
And Christine left out that she's also a village health team leader, but so what?
Yeah, village health team. We are also ready to wait for the next program for filter distribution in the community to rule out diarrhea, typhoid, at least to get safe water in the community. And we are also going to implement malaria program very soon to eliminate malaria in Achiba village. And previously, we also did a very good project there that's about sanitation, construction of latrines, 43 latrines in Achiba. Yeah, Achiba actually is our sample, the first piloting sample that we are concentrating on. Then we want to try everything with Achiba, then we shall move to the next villages. Thank you so much. And we are, as the rain season has also started, we had our nursery beds for mosquito repellent, assorted mosquito repellents of different plants. The priority is also to transfer the mosquito repellents. We are going to plant them in Achiba as the rain seasons have also started. Very soon we are going to transplant in Achiba village. We want them to prevent malaria, and we also want to go and treat malaria. Those who have malaria, we treat them. And all this support is coming from P2P, that is Chris Roesel supporting that program. And for the filter, we are soon soon the filters are going to arrive at our location, and that is with the water, with the blessing from Sister Lorraine from US. Thank you so much. That's what I can give you briefly about our programs going around in Yumbe. Thank you for supporting Yumbe. We are still looking towards you supporting us, and we are very, very happy for that. God bless you all. Give you strength. Live long. Thank you.
Thank you. Paralee, would you introduce yourself and your program? We don't. You're muted.
Oh, we all forget to turn it off. Turn it on. Yeah, both, I guess. Anyway, I'm Paralee Pizzini. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I work with a NGO, Pygmy Survival Alliance. In Africa. It's located in Kigali, Rwanda. And the founder also lives here in Seattle, and I met him a couple of years ago and joined their group. And they've been working with them for, I think it's 15 years now, and brought them from people that were living in the gutter along the side of the road to people that now have homes in a pretty large community. There's about 500 people in that group. And we've started with the microloans. We've given a couple of groups of people some microloans, very small, as introductions to the whole process. And they've become, over the last couple of years, they've learned a lot about it. And I think they're now ready for actual loans and moving their businesses forward. It's quite exciting. And we do all kinds of things, all kinds of projects in the village. And I'm going on my first trip over to the village in Kigali, and it's very exciting.
Thank you, Paralee. Bibiane, can you introduce yourself and where you are and what you do?
Yes, Chris, how are you? I'm sorry to have just come in very late. It has been raining so much in Kenya. I'm Bibiane Situma, the chairperson for St. Monica Women Group in Bukembe area, Bungoma County, Western Province of Kenya.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, we heard you. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy to have seen you guys again after the other time I saw you in Naitiri. I'm very grateful to have seen you again.
Good to
And
see
I'm liking whatever the Ugandans are presenting over there. I hope it also happens to my women here.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Luc, can you introduce yourself?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
go ahead, Luke, we hear
Hello,
you.
hello. Do you hear me, please?
We hear you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. My name is Luc Mufano. I replace Sister Rose of ACIT here in DRC. I'm the program manager of ACIT, and I'm happy to meet you all here in this platform. We are working with a group of 11 groups of microloans. You may forgive me because the network is not stable here. It's very low. The network is poor, and you can understand. So we work with a group of 11 groups of microloans, and also we are starting a program of eliminating malaria in Burale, Boungu, Burale, Shango. That's globally what we are doing with Sister Rose of ACIT, together with Women for Microloans and fighting malaria, thanks to Chris and the other group for us. Thank you very much for accepting me this meeting.
Thank you so much, Luke, and thank you for, it's good to meet you. Robert, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, Chris, I'd be happy to do that. I'm happy to meet everybody and happy to have this invitation, a chance to meet all of the rest of you here and learn something more. I'm located in Minnesota, where it's currently hailing and snowing and blowing. And I'm also a member of our local Rotary Club. And thanks to Jeff's leadership and guidance, we've been working with Mayan indigenous women in Guatemala in the formation of saving troops. And I'm part of the Grassroots Finance Action group that meets every week with people from all around the world who had the same interests, with Jeff as our guide. And I started my career actually in Latin America, working in an organization in the barrios and favelas of Latin America, working on what eventually became the early stages of microfinance back in 1966 through the early 70s. So I was a business person in between. I still do business. That's kind of what brought me to Rotary, but I'm just fascinated by what I'm learning through Jeff and the rest of you, and eager to learn more.
Thank you, Robert. Jennifer and Michael.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Malley, and this is Michael Shale. I'm the executive director of Good Foundations International, and we're based out of Wisconsin. And we are the rebranding, the group that has rebranded from the original Potters for Peace that started 30 years ago. And we've kept the mission of ceramic water filters. We're trainers and the consultants to help set up production sites around the world. And our second mission is that we are very involved in women's empowerment, which usually transforms itself in training opportunities, education, resources to get women able to earn a living and be autonomous. Is there anything you want to? Michael's he's been a lifelong wood fire potter, and so he is now on board as our specialist with ceramic water filters, and he's our technical expert in clay and firing and pot filters. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. And pardon me, the iPhone person, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, she might be away from her phone. This is Mary Turnoy, who is a college friend of mine, who is a Peace Corps volunteer in Kenya and is a strong financial supporter of TCP Global.
Thank you. Well, with that, I will turn over to Helene the presentation on how groups can use their earnings from TCP Global and Helene can tell you better what her goals and her presentation will be. And
Yeah, can you enable screen sharing though?
yes, sorry.
And I'd like to add that Hemi is also a Peace Corps trainer in Uganda. So we're hoping that he can help us introduce TCP Global to the new volunteers coming in.
Exactly.
And I'd like to add that I think Christine and the group of Rotarians in Yumbe are probably one of the most active Rotary clubs, the most effective at delivering community service. And they did most of this before they even got their charter. I couldn't be more proud to be sort of an honorary member of their group. Okay, I'm trying to, there we go. Okay, so TCP Global believes that, wait a minute.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble here because I can only see part of, okay. So TCP Global believes that grassroots organizations serving marginalized communities have a wealth of ideas to improve their communities. In my experience as a Peace Corps volunteer in Slovakia was I saw that the organizations that were really rolling up their sleeves and working with poor people to help them improve their lives were not the ones who were attracting international finances and support. So we set TCP Global up in a way so that these grassroots organizations have a way to generate funds to implement their really good ideas in their communities. And local people are the best judge of what will truly improve their community. But sometimes it's a real stretch for them to try to write a grant to convince somebody else. So if we empower them by giving them their own funds to manage, they can implement their really good ideas in the most cost-effective way. So, and the program earnings help them implement those ideas. So the TCP Global mission is twofold. It's very obvious that one of the things we want to do is assist marginalized entrepreneurs with affordable loans. But equally important is that we want to provide a steady revenue stream for grassroots organizations to help implement their ideas to improve their communities. And we want our partners to use program earnings. It's been a real struggle to get partners to use program earnings because I think there's this idea that if they take that money, if they take their earnings out of the loan pool, that they're somehow depriving people of loans. But we'll replenish those funds coming in so that they'll always have enough money for the loans, but we also want them to implement their ideas to improve their communities. So here's some examples of some really creative ways to use program earnings. So in Trujillo, Peru, they had suffered from mudslides and floods that caused a lot of problems in the city down below. Plus up in the mountains, the people were barely surviving because they couldn't make it off of one crop a year. So what Pedro from Agravida did was he used program earnings, about $4,000 in earnings, to build about 6 of these reservoirs way up in the mountains. And people laughed at him when they were doing this, but now they're starting to replicate what he does. So because of these reservoirs, they, one, prevent some of the water from going down where it causes damage down in the community, but it enables them to have several rounds of planting up in the hills so that these workers don't have to resort to moving to the city in order to feed their families. Instead, they stay up in the mountains, they produce food, which they in turn can send to the cities and help relieve food scarcity issues. And I can't imagine that any funder would have funded this, but because they had their own money to work with, they could implement this idea. And then, well, I think Christine has already taken all the thunder out of this slide because she's told you all the things that the Rotary Club of Yumbe has been doing. And they also would have had trouble getting outside funding for this because they're a small club, they don't have a long track record, they don't have bank accounts, but they do have really wonderful ideas. So they could use some of our program earnings from TCP Global plus money from Chris's organization to build the latrines, put in these tippy-tap hand wash stations, and they're all very low tech, so the people could do this themselves. They made the bricks using a Makiga brick machine to build these latrines in the community. So this is the report that you can use every month. When the sites send in their daily log, they get back a new daily log to use, but they also get a site summary report. And you can see up here the earnings balance. So it shows you what your total earnings are, and it shows you how much you've taken out and how much you still have available in local currency. And the way you get these earnings is after we send money to a site, once it's been invested twice, then you can take out 50% of that amount you originally received. So that 50% makes up part of this earnings. And then all of the interest that you collect on the loans is also part of that balance. So let's see. So open up that site summary report when you get it and check to see what your interest earnings are. And the best time to take out these earnings is when you receive more money, so that maybe instead of putting all 1,500 in for loans, maybe you'll take out 750 to use for some kind of project, and you'll increase your pool in the permanent loan pool by 750. And don't feel like you're cheating your borrowers. You're actually giving added value because you're doing some other kind of project that's also going to help them. So in order to, when you take out your earnings, there's been some confusion about this too, because maybe our names on our cells aren't so intuitive. So if you're going to take out earnings, you can click over here under the name column, and all the options come up. So click on administrative cost, put down the date, and then put down what you're taking out for administrative cost. In this case, you're going to use it possibly for a project. And then over here in the notes column, it's not necessary. These are your earnings, so you don't need our approval for how you're going to use them. But it's interesting to know, and it's something that we can report to our donors. Oh, they use their earnings to do a workshop, or they use their earnings to buy malaria nets, or they used them for whatever. It's something that helps us to convince our donors that we're a good place to invest their money. So put a little note there to let us know what you used the funds for. So these are some ways that other sites have used their earnings. If you don't have a project to do, from Mohammed Yunus's books, he makes a clear case that it's not just microloans that people need. They also need access to all other kinds of financial services. They might need personal loans. They might need loans to fix up their house. They might need a loan for some temporary medical bill. So you could take out your earnings, and you can use your earnings to run a separate microloan program, but for personal loans. Because TCP Global loan money can only be used for something that produces revenue. But when you take out your earnings, you can use those however you want, and you can provide additional services to the people so they can get affordable loans for those other emergencies that they have. Oh, and another thing that they've done in La Victoria is they've set up a fund for students who want to complete their studies. A college degree is not very expensive in Colombia, but they do need money for, books and transportation and things. So in La Victoria, they have a fund where they give loans to people who want to complete their studies. And then they don't have to pay it back with interest until after they've completed their studies. So I think there's nothing better that a community can invest in than in their human potential, investing in human resources. So if you can use your loan earnings to help people complete their education, that's a wonderful contribution to the community. So another thing they did in La Victoria, they set up a women's sewing cooperative, bought the sewing machines and the material. And now the women make things to sell in the community, and the earnings from that pays all the utilities at their community center. And in Yumbe, what a lot of the women did was for the savings groups, they took out their earnings to buy chairs. And it may look really, romantic, idyllic to sit under a mango tree and do your microloan transactions, but it's a lot more comfortable. And I also heard from a doctor recently who had been in Uganda that when you're sitting on the ground all the time, it contributes to getting worms. It's much healthier if you sit in a chair. So that's what they use their earnings for, to buy chairs. So I'm sorry, I'm having trouble seeing this. Okay, so when you get your site summary report, be sure to check down at the bottom. It lists all of the open loans, and it also lists all the closed loans. So you can see the total amount of the loan, how much they paid in total. And it's good to compare this to your records to make sure that our records are in sync, that we have the correct information. If anything doesn't agree with your records, then get in touch with me and we'll see what the problem is, what the difference is. And this report also shows you how much your loan earnings are. We don't calculate the interest until the end, when the loan is paid off in full. You can charge whatever interest is appropriate in your area, as long as it doesn't exceed the bank rate for equivalent type of loans. And then when the loan is paid in full, then we calculate retroactively what the loan rate was in effect for that particular loan. And I try to monitor this to make sure that nobody charges really high loan rates. We did find with a couple of programs that we had, two in Uganda, where when we finally saw what the interest was, they were charging 15% a month. And when I brought it to their attention, I expected them to say, oh, that's a terrible mistake. We'll have to fix that. But no, they said, well, that's what the MFIs charge. So it's an important tool for us to make sure that we're not supporting someone who's actually doing any kind of predatory loans. So another thing to check on your, so these are closed loans from a site, and they show you what the ones highlighted in yellow charged unusually high rates of interest. So when you get that site summary, look down at the bottom, and if you see anything highlighted in yellow, check your records to see if maybe they made too many payments or if a payment was reported wrong. And if they overpaid, then it's appropriate to pay them back so that we didn't charge anyone a rate of interest that was much too high. And note that the interest here is reflected as monthly interest. So to figure out what that would be on an annual basis, you would multiply that by 12. So some of these highlighted here are actually paying 72% annual interest, which is much too high. And those need to be corrected and refunded. Okay, so that is it. Are there any questions?
Maybe, if I may ask Helen, for
Sure.
example, like St. Monica, I received 3 people who had their names highlighted, but on my site, it was not higher, it was just 10%. An example I can give, like Josephine Malaya took 4,000. She had to pay a 10% of 400. Therefore, it was not a high interest rate to me. It was just the 10%.
Yeah, but it depends on how many months it took them to pay that back.
She paid within 2 months' time.
Yeah, so she paid 10% in 2 months. That's the equivalent of like 60% or more a year, right? Because it's not just comparing it to the amount of the loan, but over what period of time. Maybe there's somebody else who could explain that in better terms.
For example,
this is a question I get over and over again. You're not the only one who has that interpretation.
Because according to my people, we agreed that when somebody takes a loan, depending with how much the person has taken, the minimum is to pay within 6 months. But if somebody is able, can pay before the 6 months, and then she can take another loan.
Yeah.
But we applied 10% to each loan. and they agreed to it.
And then what do you use your interest earnings for? And does the group participate in the decision on how the earnings are to be used?
We've not yet started using the interest, but they wanted the money to accumulate first before we take the interest.
Yeah.
But
So-
recently I took out 3,000 from the interest. I bought a Wi-Fi. That is why I'm able now to communicate with you guys. Which
Okay.
means I have to report it in the next month in reporting.
Yeah. I think that's something that maybe we need to be more flexible on, because we have another program in Zambia too, where the people, they insist they want to charge a certain rate of interest and they all work together to decide how it's going to be used. So I think, Chris, if you agree, maybe we need to work out some kind of policy on a case-by-case basis where groups that are clearly in control of how their interest is used, if they choose to pay 10%, irregardless of how that works out on an annual basis, that seems reasonable to me. Chris, are you on board with that?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I think it's unfortunately to have them recalculate in process and change amounts that they're, so yeah, the simple answer is yes. I think we should give them authority to go ahead and implement their methodology, assuming that their methodology is set up initially, conceptually, not to charge an exorbitant rate or a very high rate, sorry.
Yeah, the importance here is the intent of the organization. Are they there primarily to help people improve their lives, or is it some kind of a profit-making organization? So this tool still helps us to screen out those that are predatory, but I think we do need to make an exception for places like the Zambia program and what you're describing.
What do others think?
Yeah. So Robert and Jeffrey, what do you have an opinion on that?
Rob, you're on mute.
Yeah, my experience is very limited. Jeff has much broader experience, but what I've observed in the projects that I do follow closely is that the rates are determined internally by the group, by the savers. And they are the ones who decide. Nobody from the outside decides what that rate should be. And what we're seeing, I think in Guatemala, Jeff, you help me if I'm wrong on this, is that the interest rate charge it varies, but they may also have penalties for non-payment, for example, or late payment, which all goes back into the pool to increase the value of the total savings available. But again, the key principle here is that the rates are determined by the people in the group, by the savers. And of course, they are aware of microfinance rates. And I believe, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the environment in the MFI, the microfinance institutions that are regulated, do charge quite a bit more than these savings groups, women charge each other.
Right. Just to add to that, in our projects in Cambodia, the savings groups charge 2% a month because the MFIs were charging 3% a month. So they would undercut that. In other places, they're charging 5% a month or sometimes even higher. But the difference there with microfinance, of course, is that all the interest would be returned to the savers in proportion to the amount that they saved. So if they all saved the same amount, then that was an easy calculation. So that was an extra 20%, 30% income that they had at the end. But since your credit program's a little bit different, but it's always a struggle. I think what's really great about with TCP is that how you are taking on the very, taking on sort of getting back to the intent of microfinance back in the early days when we were we're launching these back in the 1980s with Action and the work that Rob and I and others did at Action and spreading this idea. So it's the spirit of it. It's much, it goes back to the origins instead of how much money you can extract out of people, give them too much loans and steal customers from each other. So it's very refreshing to see how you've gone back to the spirit of microfinance of all those years ago.
The only thing I could add to, excuse me, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to say the only thing I could add is that in the early days when microfinance was being developed in Latin America, which is well before Bangladesh, of course, we're talking about the late 60s and early 70s. The idea was that when you are growing your microfinance programs and overseeing these loans, that on a case-by-case basis, you would try to have some way of determining whether the individual who's borrowing could pay back the principal and the interest and still have additional money available. So there was as Jeff says, the principle, the idea, the goal was to make sure people were able to advance themselves financially by borrowing and repaying. So there had to be some thought given to, could the individual who's borrowing pay the interest, pay the principal back, and still have more money than they started with?
Luc, Innocent, Emmy, any input to the idea that that the rates could vary, and what we've been doing is if the person pays the money back faster, we've been trying to readjust the interest rate, but that becomes complicated.
Yes.
Luc, Innocent, Emmy, any input on that?
Yeah, maybe I can come on. Thank you very much for that. I'm just talking from the experience that we have got through our loan program. So at the beginning, when we are starting the loan program with TCP, the women and the group members actually sat down and discussed the number of, the interest rate they wanted to have. So they were excited at the beginning and they put the interest rate at 10%, which was very high because they used to be in a group of 10 and then save, and then they bring out some the interest. But along the way, as we kept going, other women realized that they cannot be able to pay the percentage of 10. And then later they came back and then they started having a discussion. So they revised the interest rate, which is fairly right now. So I think it's also a learning sometimes when you're still new in the group, because the interest, and then you're excited to be part of the group and get money, but again later becomes quite challenging to pay back. So maybe for beginner, you will continue learning, but I think the lower rate is much better. It encourages the women and the group members continue borrowing than the saving. So on the savings, on the interest rate, what is happening for our side here is that the members have decided to support education of the children within their own communities with the interest that they're earning as well. But also other projects supporting the women who are pregnant within the group so that they can get some of the materials, maternity materials for them to get to the hospital, for them to get some other few equipment and materials for the learning. For the pregnant men, women. So those are the things that we have been experiencing as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Emmy, for all that. I needed to also report on the interest paid. Of course, right from the beginning when we started this program, that started 2020. Of course, what we did is to ask the women groups to decide how much they need the interest to be. So right from the beginning, they decided the interest should be 5%. And up to date, they are paying it so well that the interest, of course, they are in charge of the interest to decide the interest. So different groups decide how to use the interest. And of course, the 22 women group leaders who formed the Rotary Club agreed that the part of the interest should come for the dues of the Rotary Club. So part of the interest, they use it for paying the dues of the Rotary. And then part of of course, as Helene had explained, some of them use the interest for buying chairs. And right now in Bidibidi refugee settlement, they have not yet used their interest, and they had planned that their interest will be used for farming. Since the World Food Program has rationed their rations pay, so they planned to use their interest to open a farm to plant maybe cereal crops, which in turn also helps their family. So that is the process we are now remaining with, and we are engaging OPM so that, of course, the OPM has a land, and we have prepared some letters to the OPM so that it can avail the land for these women groups so that they can start planting their crops, since this is the right season. And another thing I just needed to know is about the monthly repayment. Right from the beginning, these women groups were paying, they do their repayment in 6 months. But now I can see, of course, they are now getting a loan of 2 million Ugandan shillings. Others get 3 million Ugandan shillings. So we agreed with them that it's okay if you borrow 2 million Ugandan shillings or 3 million Ugandan shillings, you can pay it either in 1 year time or 8 months, depending on each group's decision. So I needed you to clarify if that one cannot affect the system, especially in reporting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you just repeat that? I was distracted by a question that I was answering.
Yes, I just need you to direct me on this. Right now, when you see these women groups, many of them are from 300 Ugandan shillings. They have come to borrow a loan of 3 million Ugandan shillings. So they decided that they need to pay these 3 million Ugandan shillings in 1 year period, other than six month period. I needed to know if that cannot affect the spreadsheet system in reporting.
No, the local people can set the terms, how much the interest is and what the repayment rate is. But the purpose of TCP Global is to help people get to the point where they can qualify to enter the formal economy. So once you're getting a loan of 2.5 or 3 million Uganda shillings, ideally, we would start working to find a way to work carefully with banks. I mean, I've heard the women's concerns about getting bank loans, and I totally agree, those are very valid concerns, but there are ways that you can work successfully with banks. I just sent you some notes from Father Vincent, who is working with banks in the south of Uganda, that I'd like you and Rukia to look over and maybe invite him to speak to the Rotary Club in a future meeting. But for people who are able to manage those large loans, it would be best if they could move on to banks and let some more people who need small loans come in to help them climb up the ladder of success. But yes, you could, but whatever you do, those are local decisions, and you can decide what size the loans are and what the repayment rate is. problem with if it's for a year, then the money doesn't recirculate as often and it's not available for other people to use.
Yeah.
If I may, the rational thing would be to take 5% for 6 months and make it 10% for a year period. But Helene says that's the group's decision.
Yeah, and just for you to know, most other sites are charging the equivalent of maybe 1.5% to 2% a month, whereas the programs in Yumbe are charging less than 1% a month once you take that 5% and spread it out over 6 months. So there's two benefits to raising the interest rate. One is it'll make that transition to bank loans a little bit easier for people. And the other is that it will provide more funds for SEDUC to use for their good programs and for the women's groups to use for their programs. So you might want to consider talking to them about maybe raising their interest rates a little bit because you're much lower than everybody else.
A question I have, and pardon me for interrupting, but the question I have is, are Bibiane, Emmy, Innocent seeing clearly enough what the earnings for the group are so that you know how much you could actually withdraw from the program to, say, do the farming or buy sewing machines or whatever? Does the site summary report, are you seeing in it those numbers clearly enough so that you
Yes.
know how much money you have available that you could take out of, that the groups could take out of the program for other activities that they have as group activities?
Yes, Grace. For example, at least now I'm in picture after Helen has just explained on the administrative cost. Initially, when we were given the kites, I didn't know how to go about it. But after Helen has just explained, at least now I know how to go about it and how we can spend that money that we've made from the interests.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I jump in here? Thanks. So this is probably directed a little at Lenny Christine. I was wondering, as we move forward with training for women or opportunities for sewing and soap making, and I have a video I'm going to send you for making skin products using the beeswax from people who are raising bees. I'm wondering if you can identify some of the money that you have that you could put towards those. So I put some towards those projects, you put some towards those projects, and move forward. Is there any, would your group be willing to discuss how much money you have and what portion, what part of it you could put towards the women's training from the proceeds of the loans?
Yes, my women are ready to learn, and you can set as the piece of the artwork of the pits. Some of them can be interested, like myself. I've been making rosaries for the Catholic Church. Therefore, I can teach others also to do the same so that we can increase our interests or our income for the women. Because my group consists of widows, 3/4 are widows, and very elderly women.
Do you know if you have any money that you can use from your loans, any of the profits, or I don't know the word for it that Helene's using, but any of that money that you have freedom to use? Do you have any of that money that can help the women's programs? So I give some money and your group puts in money and then we can do more programs?
initially the group didn't have savings of their own, but so far, at least in the bank, we still have around the 25,000 shillings that has not been spent, of which we can still use them to start a project with. But the other monies is in circulation now. We don't have any cash at hand.
Yeah, so you can look on the site summary report and determine how
Yes.
much of that money you have in circulation could be
Yes.
withdrawn when new payments come in to use for these projects. And,
Yes.
you know, we're trying to help sites become independent, because you can't always find an organization like Jennifer's that's going to send money to buy soap molds, et cetera. But we're trying to show how there are ways within the community where you can build up the resources to buy those things that you need yourself, and you don't need to be independent on people from the outside.
Yes.
Wonderful that Jennifer's group will provide a portion of what you need, but we'd like to work towards the stage where you can be totally self-sufficient.
Exactly. Our Good Foundations is very supportive of starting up programs, but our final, the goal is sustainability. The goal is that we don't just keep sending money forever, but that we get you started, and then profits are built in so that that program can go on without us. And I'm just trying to set up a budget or a time frame or find out what funds are available in order to put that model into practice.
Yeah, so everybody can see that information on the site summary report that shows their
Okay.
earnings and how much they've taken out. It becomes a little bit more complicated in the case of the Yumbe projects, because some of the earnings go to the fiscal sponsor and some of the earnings go to the groups. But, you know, for particular groups, I can help you find out how much is still available from the interest earnings. So Emmy has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. For our case, our groups basically, the interest rate, they have not used it for other purposes, but they have been using it to give to the other members to borrow. So it means that we have some interest rate which is not utilized in other projects by the group members. So it means that we can use that as well. We can talk to the group, because group really wanted to have some additional projects. So we can use that to ensure that we can start other smaller projects within the groups. The other thing that also they agreed is that some part of the interest, they're using it to build the capacity of the leadership of the group. Because one thing that we want to encourage the group to do is to start having the capacity to report what is happening within their own group of us. So that we don't continue going to group every single time. So some part of the interest, they're using it to ensure that they build the capacity of the group so that they can be independent. So maybe Jennifer will, maybe Helene will try to help us to see how much accumulated interest has been there in their groups, and then we shall be able to talk to the group so that we can look at some of the smaller projects for making other income.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Until you have a use for the interest earnings, it's best to keep it invested in microloans where it's earning even more interest. But then you have to be willing to take it out at the point where you really do have a project that will benefit the community. And Innocent? Innocent?
Yes. Yes, Christine need to really add her voice here.
Thank you so much. This is in Yumbe. I'm talking on behalf of my women group, that is Amangabo. Every month we circulate our money among the women, and we collect the development fund, that is the interest, which is 5% of the loans that you have taken. And we use this 5% interest, we collect it together in a basket, and then we use it, as Innocent said before, we use it for buying chairs. Using it for buying chairs also helps us in the community when we are in our offices We use the chairs for visitors to sit on and so on. Then sometimes also in our community, every year people do a lot of activities, functions, and so on. Chairs are never enough for them. Then they will also turn it to come and hire these chairs from us. Each chair is 300 Ugandan shillings. So every time they come to hire the chairs for us, we continue to earn our interest, and our interest continues to grow. And the same interest that we also have it there, when the money circulates among us, and if someone maybe within the community needs help, we always give him or her that interest as they will return it with also interest. And it means our interest, our money continues to grow. And that's how we use our interests. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like you.
And we also sometimes use, like in my community, we use our interest for buying some beads. And these beads, we use them for decorating some money purse. There are these beautiful money purses that are made out of beads, and we sell them, and that also adds more interest for us in the money that we save in. But we don't touch the actual loan, we don't touch it at all. It continues to circulate among us, but we make sure every month, everybody has to return the money and the next woman has to take it. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, so make sure that you use those site summary reports so that you know what's available and you can spot any problems. And I think, Chris, what we need to do is ask all of our partners to let us know how they set the interest rate and how it's used. Because for our due diligence, we do need to make sure that we've checked to make sure that that no one's charging predatory interest. And for those that charge higher than the bank rate, we need to have some record of justification for why that is. And what Bibiane explains is total justification. But we need to have some record of that, I think.
Great, thank you. We are over an hour now. Do you want to quickly evaluate our meeting? Do you have any suggestions to make it better in the future? How we can make it better?
I was very pleased with the discussion, and but what do Bibiane, Emmy, and Luc have to say? Mary, do you have a comment?
No, it's good.
Okay. So Innocent, Bibiane, Christine, Luc, Emmy.
Yeah, so maybe personally, I was just saying that.
Mary, could you mute?
The meeting is very, very important. Very important for myself. I have seen it. I have a lot that I have learned from it. It has really directed me also to have a lot of improvement for my community and for my group as well. And as a Christian here, I stand here on behalf of the rest of the community, for the group members, and I'm going to explain this to our chairpersons during the Rotary Club meetings. Thank you so much. I think I'll be able to attend these monthly meetings to support us to improve our services. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent that you can report back to the Rotary Club.
Yes, yeah. On addition to that, I really suggest next month meeting should be, this opportunity should be given to the women group leaders, both in the host community and refugee settlement, so that they come here and they share with us so that we know their challenges and then their achievements. I just need to know that if that possibility will be there next month.
Okay, are you saying that we should make the same presentation at a Rotary meeting some Wednesday morning? Is that?
No, I'm suggesting the monthly meetings of TCP Global, whereby I suggest next month should be given to the women group leaders, both in the refugee settlement, Bidibidi refugee settlement, and the host communities. even though there are many, we can select some, maybe 10 people to come and present for us so that we share together and see their challenges. Maybe
Okay.
they achieve, yes.
Sounds good.
And that was our next point. Robert, did you have something to say before I?
Just a big thank you on my behalf and on Jeff's behalf. He had to leave for another meeting. I really appreciate having the chance to sit in and listen and learn some more about what people are doing. Very impressed. And as a Rotarian, I've shared information with our International Service Committee about the Yumbe Rotary Club, and very impressed, and they eager to learn more. So thank you for letting me join you here today.
Thanks for joining us.
So, thank you, Robert. For our next meeting is May 21st. That's essentially 4 weeks from now. Is May 21st an okay time, okay day for the next meeting? And are there any problems? Will that work for you, Innocent, for the presentation you're proposing?
Yes, if it is seconded, that will be fine.
So that's on a Saturday and in a month. And is 5:30 p.m. Eastern African time, 4:30 p.m. Central African time, is that time all right for you, Innocent, Vivian, Emmy, Luc?
I'm suggesting that since the BDBD women groups will be coming to attend the meeting, if it would be pushed to at least at 4:30 Ugandan time, that would work here in Uganda.
Is it all right with everyone to move it ahead 1 hour so the women can return to the camp?
That's fine with me.
And
Me too.
so the suggestion is to, so that's 1 hour earlier than usual. And the volunteer presentation for next month is the reports from groups in Yumbe. Is that all right with everyone? And
Yes, I think we have a lot to learn from them.
yeah, and people think about who wants to do a presentation in the future. Luc, Vivian, we haven't heard from you. So at the end of next month's meeting, we will have volunteers for future presentations.
I can do it.
All right. Well, good. So Vivian, was that you saying you could do it?
Yeah.
We will put you down for June.
I can do it after Yumbe.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And the other thing is if everyone can bring one, like Rotary says. So if you can try to reach out to some of the other groups in Kenya to encourage them to be on the call, and also other groups in Uganda who are not here. Because I think if they understood better, we could all work together and make better improvements.
Yes,
Excellent.
Yumbe is ready. We are going to do
fine.
that presentation next month. Thank you so much.
Thank
Vivian,
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean,
do
All
that
right.
and you ask. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Bye.
good. So we've done an evaluation. We have a date and time for next meeting and the presenter for the next meeting. And if anyone wants to follow up with programs and discuss further earnings and so on, we can look at that and help with the site summary sheets to planning community activities. Go ahead, Luc.
Do you hear me?
We
Yes.
hear you, Luc. Go ahead.
I've written somewhere in the messages, I've been really impressed, as this is my very first time to attend this meeting. And I'm happy to have discovered how TCP Global worked around the world. Unfortunately, for poor network, I've been unable to participate actively to the meeting. Anyway, I've written as well that 3:30 next month is okay for us. It doesn't matter. I think this is what I can say.
Excellent.
The rest, perhaps next time, if the networks as well, we will be able to get ideas, some more ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luc. Good. Well, with that, unless there's an urgent input, we can conclude the meeting. Does anybody have to go ahead? All right, with that, I will conclude the meeting and I will send a recording to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Helene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
Excellent meeting. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.